Imagine losing to the New Orleans Pelicans. Imagine doing that. Couldn't be the Sacramento Kings, right? The Kings would never lose to the Pelicans, certainly not 6 times in the same season. It's kind of sad that we're celebrating the Kings beating a 5-21 team as much as we are tonight, but the Kings exercised a demon. They beat the Pelicans. They did it. And the way they did it was pretty encouraging, although kind of spooky at times too. We'll break it down right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And let's just say it's a good thing that it's a kind of rainy, stormy, ugly night in Sacramento, because there'd be parades in the streets. Bring out the floats. Bring out the fans. The Sacramento Kings defeated the New Orleans Pelicans. Take Mardi Gras and bring it over here to Sacktown for an occasion like this. Honestly, it feels good just to be able to say that the Kings beat the Pelicans. If you didn't go through those 6 games of hell last season where the Pelicans didn't just beat the Kings over and over and over and over and over and over again, they kicked the Kings' butt over and over and over and over and over and over again, including eliminating their chances from getting back into the playoffs. So exhale. The Kings beat the Pelicans. It's possible. It's possible. Now, I know that defeating a 5-21 team maybe shouldn't have been as difficult or as scary as tonight's win was. 111-109, the final score. The Kings were up like 10 points in the fourth quarter, and the Pelicans came back to have a chance to steal it, which, oh my God, if the Kings had found a way to lose that game, when I tell you Locked On Kings would have been like a funeral or a absolute rage fest. I don't know what this podcast would have been tonight. Thank God we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to deal with it. The Kings overcame CJ McCollum's hate. He just can't seem to let 2013 go. And if you're not familiar, CJ shared not a handful of years ago, he shared that the Sacramento Kings actually promised to draft CJ McCollum. They promised him that they were going to draft him. Of course, they didn't draft him in 2013, and he seems to just love to cook the Kings ever since. Add him to the list of guys that the Kings should have taken or were going to take and passed up on. I mean, of course, Dame Lillard, his longtime partner and teammate in Portland, was also one of those guys. CJ tonight had 36 points, 17 of them in the fourth quarter. He was just straight up willing the Pelicans to keep their domination over the Kings going, just out of spite. That's the only thing I'm going to say it. That's the only reason why I'm gonna say it's because of 2013, and that's the reason why CJ wanted to beat the Kings so bad. No idea if that's the case, but that's what I'm saying. I'm sticking to it here on Locked On Kings. But ultimately, the Kings get the win. They beat the Pelicans. In reality, while things could have certainly been cleaner, certainly could have been tighter, this game could have been a lot better, because certainly during this now 5-game stretch where the Kings are 4-1 and playing a lot better basketball, this was definitely not the best game that they've played out of that stretch, especially offensively, coming off the game that they just had, really 2 games in a row where they scored 140 and 141 points, right? So offensively and at times defensively, certainly not the best night for the Sacramento Kings. But look, you got the win. You broke the Pelicans curse. And this win accomplishes a handful of things. Number one, it gets you back to 500. And that's a big deal when you look at the upcoming schedule. And that's something that we'll get to at the end of this podcast. And it's the manner of which the Sacramento Kings won this game that I think is pretty encouraging, despite it being so close and despite it not being the prettiest of games. But how the Kings won, I think, is something that Mike Brown can take a lot of positives from. you have Domantas Sabonis, who steps up in a major way and carries you through the first half where offensively you were really struggling. You have DeMar DeRozan dominate in the third quarter. And then you have the Kings defense closing things out in the fourth. And we're going to break all three of these things down and go into them in more detail. But different guys stepped up. You had different portions of the game where different things helped carry you through. It wasn't one thing being the difference maker the entire night. And it's a good team win, right? It's the definition of a really good team win for the Kings. And we have to talk about the domination from Domantas Sabonis tonight. 32 points, 11 of 15 from the field. He's a perfect 9 of 9 from the free throw line, which you love to see. 20 rebounds, 6 of them offensive, 3 assists, 2 steals, and my favorite number, even more than 32 points, 1 turnover. The Kings in general are doing a much better job taking care of the basketball. I have some numbers to reflect that over this stretch in coming up in the show. But Domantas Sabonis was one of the real big culprits to their turnover issues. And lately, he's done a much better job taking care of the basketball. And when he can be in attack mode and be as aggressive offensively as he was tonight, especially in that first half, and he's taking care of the basketball and not turning it over when teams are attacking him, trying to take the ball out of his hands and trying to meet him with physicality at the rim and in the paint. When Domas can take care of the basketball and score at the level that he did in this game, it's really encouraging. This is the game that critics have been calling for. This is the game that critics kind of insult him for. Domas is not a $40+ million per year player because offensively he can't have those nights where he leads you, he carries you to a victory. He did tonight, right? The Sacramento Kings were dreadful in the first half. They shot 36% from the field, 23% from three-point range in the first half. Nobody was really able to get anything going except for Domantas Sabonis, who had a 20-point, 12-rebound, double-double at halftime. The next closest scorer for the Kings was Fox with 10. Everybody else was in single digits, right? So you're ice cold again from the field against a long, lengthy, aggressive physical team that has given you a lot of issues in the past. And Domas keeps you in it, keeps it close. Kings trailed by 2 at the half, and bought Sacramento time for what happened in the third quarter when DeMar DeRozan really woke up. And we'll get to that in just a second. What I love about this game is, like I said, Domas kind of answered the call of those critics. Of course, those critics are going to go radio silent, right? You're not going to hear any of them talk about it because this is not the first time this season that Domas has done this. In fact, he's been in attack mode a lot more this season that I can remember. Right. And it's attack mode, but the right way. And it makes you think back to the challenges from Domas's teammates and coaching staff during training camp and preseason of, hey, look to shoot and look to score more. Now, the primary focus of that was on the 3-point side. And Domas did hit a 3 tonight, went 1 of 1 from 3-point range. Mike Brown has encouraged him, hey, take 3, 4, 5 of those shots a night if they're available to you. And he's been hitting those shots at a pretty reasonable clip. But it wasn't just that the Kings were challenging Domas to shoot more of those threes. The Kings wanted Domas to, while his first instinct is to play make and try and find his teammates, and that's great, and you never want to take that away from Domas, they've encouraged him to look to score himself more. And in addition to the 3-point shooting, I think we're seeing Domas doing a better job of recognizing when he can attack the rim and when he can look to score in the paint. And when he attacks, good things are happening, not just for the Kings, but for him. This is the 8th game this season where Domas has 15 or more field goal attempts, right? 15 is not an absurd number, but it's not something that Domas does as often as he should, because in those 8 games with 15 or more field goal attempts, Domas is averaging 26 points per game and shooting 62% from the field. What's a little perplexing is that the Kings are only 4-4 in those games. So a 500 record, just like what they're at right now. To me, I don't think that speaks negatively on Sabonis. I think that speaks negatively on the rest of the Sacramento Kings. If Domas is attacking and scoring at the rate that he was tonight, you absolutely should be winning that basketball game. And I think what also that number reveals is when Domas is doing this and stepping up and doing it, it's when his team needs him to, because other guys may not be able, or not enough guys, not enough of the stars are pulling their weight to help him out. Like in reality, with how lethal this team is offensively, if Domas is giving you 26 points in a game or more, you should 100% be winning that game. That hasn't been the case as much as it should be in this game, but I think Domas is recognizing when to attack and who to attack, right? The Pelicans no longer have Jonas Valanciunas. He's gone, and they never really replaced him. That's one of the reasons why they're playing so terribly to start the season. I understand they've been riddled by injuries too. But no Valanciunas, who gave Sabonis problems in the 6 times they lost to the Kings lost to him last year. So no Valanciunas. The Pelicans never really replaced him. So Domas feasts, right, on the boards and scoring in the paint. But he loves to attack star bigs as well, right? Over those 8 games that I laid out for you where he has 15 or more field goal attempts, 4 of those games are against star centers. 2 against Rudy Gobert, 2 against Victor Wembanyama, and the Kings play Anthony Davis and the Los Angeles Lakers twice next week. So I have to imagine at least one of them, if not both of them, are also going to be 15 attempt games for Domas. He loves to attack star bigs, and that's pretty encouraging. Again, for a guy that the critics say isn't worth the money because offensively he doesn't attack and doesn't score and can't lead the Kings. Well, here you go. He did it for you. I don't expect you to tweet about it or write about it or say anything about it because it goes against your narrative and you probably weren't watching anyway. But at least we know, the people who actually watch him play, we know he's capable of doing it. And here's a game where the Kings needed him to do it and he helped carry them through. That is until DeMar DeRozan really woke up. And it's not like Domas disappeared in the second half after that great first half. He was really solid in the third quarter as well. But DeMar DeRozan started cooking in the third. And then the Kings defense carried them home in the fourth. We'll break all of that down here, still to come on the Locked On Kings podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle all the NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. So pick an easy bet that you can find, place $5 on that, you win, you get $150 in bonus bets, and you can really have some fun on FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts with you. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer on the first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. That third quarter and this game in general is exactly why Monty McNair and the Kings went out and got DeMar DeRozan, right? What DeMar DeRozan gave the Kings in the third quarter of this game is exactly what this team was missing in their 6 losses to the Pelicans last season. Guys are struggling. The offense isn't there. The physicality of the Pelicans is bothering the Kings. Yes, even a 5-20 Pelicans team can play good defense and play with physicality that disrupts Sacramento. We know the matchup has not been kind to the Kings. The Kings are struggling to score. They're struggling to get anything going. So here comes DeMar DeRozan, and he says, essentially, give me the ball. Except he didn't do it in the way we're used to seeing him do it, right? He had 9 points at halftime. The vast majority of them were at the free throw line because he was cold to start the game just like everybody else was. But this wasn't a DeMar DeRozan mid-range clinic of frustration that the Pelicans had to deal with. This is DeMar DeRozan raining down threes and deep twos. My God, I love DeMar. DeMar, just when you think you're behind the three-point line, take like another quarter step back, not even a half step, just another quarter step back. The amount of long twos this dude shoots and makes drives me nuts. He should have had 4 threes in a row. It ended up being 3 because his toe was on the line for one of them. But regardless, a huge third quarter for DeMar DeRozan. 16 points, 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from 3-point range for the game. DeMar had 29 points, so 20 of them in the second half. 4 rebounds, 4 steals. Also doing a great job on the defensive end. Again, this is what the Kings lacked last year, right? They're struggling to get going. The Pelicans are maintaining a small lead, and these were the stretches last year where eventually the Pelicans were able to pull away, right? Imagine if DeMar didn't do what he did in that third quarter, and then CJ McCollum got cooking the way that he did in that second half, and particularly that fourth quarter. That's 8-10 points of separation. The Kings lose this game by double digits, right? How many times were the Kings blown out by the Pelicans last year because they went through stretches where they straight up just could not score, and the Pelicans got momentum and took advantage of that, right? DeMar was the antidote. DeMar was the solution for this game. And this is not going to be the last time. It hasn't been the first time this season, and it's not going to be the last time this season for sure, where the Kings turned to DeMar just to get them buckets. And once he started getting going, it bought time for everybody else to get going. Domantas Sabonis also had a solid third quarter as well. The Kings ended up scoring, 38 points in that third quarter. And I think Sabonis and DeRozan were responsible combined for like 26 or 28 of those points, right? So Sabonis stayed aggressive. DeMar started cooking, and that bought time for De'Aaron to kind of wake up, Keegan Murray to kind of wake up, and then suddenly Sacramento is in a position where they've built a double-digit lead going into the fourth quarter, where they allow their defense to help carry them home, right? Because the Kings offense only scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. That's why this game got as close as it did. Right? The Kings should have scored more in the fourth, and we would have liked to see the Kings close this game out a little bit better on the offensive end, but they didn't. They went cold again. They've been struggling to shoot, not just like they did earlier on in this game, but like they've been doing consistently throughout this season, right? I will say, out of the 20 points in the fourth quarter, Keegan Murray had 8 of them, and that included 2 big threes. He went 2 of 3 from 3-point range in the fourth quarter. I bring this up to say Keegan Murray's 18 point, 7 of 14 from the field, 3 of 7 from 3-point range, and 9 rebound stat line. That's perfect, right? You 100% can live with that. If the Kings had lost this game, we would have pointed to Keegan in the sense that, oh man, if he had hit one more shot, or it would have been nice to have a little bit more. And the Kings still are waiting for and will need those breakout games from Keegan. And it feels like it's coming. It feels like it's coming for Keegan. But an 18-point, shooting 50% from the field, knocking down 3 threes and grabbing 9 rebounds, if that is a stat line you're getting from Keegan, you should be winning the game 100%, and you should be very happy with that performance from Keegan based off of what his role is expected to be and understood to be on this team with the amount of weapons that this team has that he's playing next to, right? Love that stat line from Keegan. Wasn't a perfect game, but it's one of those stat lines where I say it's perfect in the sense that he gives you that. You can't really complain about it. There's not a lot to complain about ultimately with a stat line like that. So he was the primary source of offense for the Kings in the fourth quarter, hit some big shots to help create some separation. But defensively, this is how the Kings secured this game. They had 5 steals in the fourth quarter. Now, steals aren't anything or aren't everything, but the Pelicans turned the ball over 6 times in the fourth quarter. More turnovers meant less shots for CJ McCollum, which is a good thing for the Kings. And Sacramento was able to ride that to the end, including one of those 5 steals was a Malik Monk strip when the Pelicans had the ball only down by 2 and plenty of time to score at the end of the game. Malik Monk, who had a pretty quiet game, especially scoring the basketball, only had 5 points tonight, struggled shooting, 2 of 11 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3-point range, did have 9 assists, so did his thing getting everybody else going. But his one steal on the game was a huge strip at the end to essentially win this game and secure the victory. And this is the type of game, and how the Kings won this game, I think speaks to a lot of what Mike Brown is talking about, right? This is why Mike doesn't want the media and has been very vocal recently about the media and fans and everybody talking about the 3-point shooting and 3-point shooting alone, because by that logic, the Kings should have lost this game, right? Because they shot 29% from 3-point range. By that logic, they should have lost this game. But they won for a multitude of different reasons, but they really, truly secured this win with their defense in the fourth. What Mike has been saying is that The Kings need to find ways to be good enough and consistent enough and fix issues and correct mistakes outside of the three-point shooting that he knows is bad and he knows is a struggle, and that this team knows they need to do better than that, but they can't just put all their eggs in that basket. The Kings can't just chalk it up to, man, we're 500 on the season and we've lost the majority of our games because of our three-point shooting, and that's it. If we can't make shots, we can't win games. He doesn't want that mindset because he knows the Kings are capable of still winning games like they did tonight, even when that three-point shot isn't falling. And part of that involves a really encouraging trend for the Kings over this 4-1 stretch that they're on to get them back to 500. I'll share that trend with you here in just a second. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of Locked On Kings is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the app that you need to be using to buy your tickets to whatever event from this point on. Certainly Kings games, right? The Kings are about to be at home a ton for the remainder of this year. Hey, you looking to buy good priced Kings tickets for a loved one for Christmas time? Do it on Gametime because you're not going to find better deals. They have a Gametime Picks feature, which makes it so easy. You can find more deals on sports, comedy shows, theatrical productions, concerts, whatever. And it helps you sift through the thousands of tickets that are potentially available for these events and find you and point out quickly only the best deals in certain different areas that you are going to find. It does all the busy work for you. Why? Because time is important on Gametime, because with Gametime, they have these flash deals and incredible last minute deals to where you might be buying your tickets half an hour, 2 hours before the event starts, because that's when you're going to find the best deals and prices on Gametime. Plus, they have this feature all in pricing. It's so simple, yet it's so brilliant for anyone who has purchased tickets on these sites before. You know about the pain of selecting tickets on the price that you want, getting all the way to that final checkout screen, and then all of a sudden there's bam, $20, $30, $40 worth of fees added on top of that. Not on Gametime. What you see is what you get. The fees are included in the initial price when you pick your seat. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Matt, what is this encouraging trend that you speak of for the Sacramento Kings over this 4-1 stretch, other than the fact that the Kings are winning basketball games again? The Kings are doing a really, really good job during this stretch, moving the basketball and taking care of it, right? Here are the 5 games during this stretch, and one game is going to stick out to you, and it's going to be obvious why. Tonight, 24 assists, only 11 turnovers for the Kings. Versus the Jazz, 39 assists to 8 turnovers. That was their 141-point blowout win over the Jazz. Against the Spurs, 28 assists, 14 turnovers. That was their 140-point blowout win over San Antonio. Against the Grizzlies, 27 assists, 22 turnovers. Still a positive assist-to-turnover ratio, but the Kings did not do a good job taking care of the ball in that game. What a surprise. They lost that game. And then versus the Rockets, to get this whole stretch going, 33 assists, and 10 turnovers. So during this 5-game stretch where the Kings are 4-1, the Kings are averaging 30 assists and only 13 turnovers a game during this stretch. Well over a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Now, you have to have made baskets to have assists. So ultimately, I think the Kings' assist numbers would be way higher than where they are this season if they were actually hitting their shots, because they've always been generating good looks. They just haven't been dropping consistently enough. Now we're starting to see them drop. But what's encouraging is this trend, these 30 assists per game over the course of these 5 games would put them in the top 3 in the NBA, right? And like very close. We're talking like 0.1 or 0.2 points lower than number 1 in the NBA, which I believe is the Denver Nuggets, right? If top 3 in the NBA in assists over the last 5 games. And you'd have the 13 turnovers actually matches the Kings' average for this season. There have been games for sure where the Kings have not taken care of the basketball. When they were sliding a little bit earlier, taking care of the basketball was like a nightly issue for that team for like a 3-4 game stretch. But what I like is, what is this trend telling you? That the Kings are not getting worse taking care of the basketball. They're staying relatively the same. And by the way, 13 turnovers a game for the Kings is 8th in the league. So the Kings are a top 10 team in the league at taking care of the basketball. They've been that way, not just during the stretch, but this season. So they're sticking to that. They're doing a good job taking care of the basketball, but their assist numbers are skyrocketing. Their ball movement is getting better. Malik Monk coming into the starting lineup is a direct contributor to this. Shots are falling, the ball is moving well, and the Kings are not turning the ball over while those assists are going up. Drastic improvement, consistency. That's what we're getting in this area, and it's directly correlating to the Kings winning more games. And now that they've gone 4-1 over this stretch, the Kings are back to 500. They're back to 500, and they start a 5-game homestand on Monday against the Denver Nuggets. So look, this is what you got to look at, right? You took your early bumps. It's been a frustrating season for sure to this point. Absolutely. I don't think any of us expected the Sacramento Kings to be 13-13. That's what they are, right? 13-13, 26 games into the season. I don't think we expected that. We were hoping for better. We were expecting better. The Kings are still, as of now, out of even the play-in picture. So they're far, even at 500, they're far from where they want to be and where they expect to be. That being said, right? You go through these bumps, you're incorporating players, you're dealing with injuries, you're not shooting the ball well. Defensively, you still have struggles. All these things that have gone wrong. You go 3-4 games under 500. Now you've battled back. Things are starting to click. You're starting to figure things out. And what is ahead of you? 9 of your next 11 games are at home. This 5-game homestand you have coming up is the Nuggets, the Lakers twice, the Pacers, and the Pistons. So you've had your bumps. Now you've righted the ship. Here is your opportunity to really attack, push, get into the thick of things in the Western Conference. Because even though you're in 12th, or I think 11th now, even though you're in the 11th spot, you're on the outside looking in of the play-in at this point. You're not far out of it. There are a lot of teams between you and where you want to be, but you're in it. You're in the mix. Here's your opportunity to get back into the thick of things. You're half a game out of the play-in. You're 1.5 games out of 6th, which avoids the play-in altogether. You're 2 games out of 5th. And 5 of these 11 games that you're about to play during this 9-game out of 11 at home stretch, 5 of those games are against teams that are directly ahead of you in those spots. Not directly ahead of you in the West. I'm just talking about in the spots between 5th and where you're at now in 11th. So you have a chance to beat these teams and straight up either catch them, leapfrog them, or close the gap. And the gap's not that big. On top of that, 3 of these games, and other than those 5, 3 more of these games are against teams under 500 from the East. Pacers, Pistons, and I believe, who's the third team? You have the Pacers, you have the Pistons, and I should have the Kings schedule up, but I don't. It's like on the tip of my tongue. Pacers, Pistons, 76ers, who have been a disaster. 8 games right there. You get a vast majority of them, you're in so much better shape. It's right there for you. This is your opportunity to strike. It hasn't gone well. It hasn't put you where you want to be, but you have a chance to end 2024 and start 2025 with some real momentum, get yourself well over 500 and put yourself right into the thick of the Western Conference playoff race as the season, as many say, truly begins when we get into mid to late January and into February, where the trade deadline starts to come along and the All-Star break starts to come along. It's right there for you, Kings. You fought your way back into it. Now take advantage of it. Here's that stretch. Go out and attack. Go out and get it. All right, now I want to hear from you. Your thoughts on this Sacramento Kings win, finally beating the New Orleans Pelicans. I know it was ugly at times. I'm sure there are some things from this game that concern you. Some things hopefully you're encouraged by too. Your thoughts on DeRozan, Sabonis, anybody. Anything you want to talk about, hit me up at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. I'll see you Monday inside the Golden One Center for Kings and Nuggets. Until then, my name is Matt George. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.